Hey everyone, this is Kyle Rasmussen. Thanks for listening to my podcast here today. This is episode 4. I wanted to kind of warn everyone before jumping into the episode. We had a lot of technical difficulties when recording this, so I had to go back and kind of re-record some of the things that I said as I was breaking up a little bit, as it was a long distance call. Anyways, this is a great conversation. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So, we'll jump into this and hope you enjoy. I also wanted to acknowledge what's happening over in Ukraine right now and around Ukraine. Unfortunately, things are getting more and more tense in that part of the world, mainly due to the U.S. and Russia sort of posturing with each other. It's really sad to see what's happening over there right now. Hopefully it all kind of works out all right and calms down, and hopefully we can all travel over there again safely. I hope this episode shows you that there's a lot of good in traveling, and traveling to the Ukraine in Eastern Europe is something that we should do if that's something that interests you. I know I certainly would like to get over there as soon as I can, but hopefully we can do it safely, and hopefully things turn out all right with that. And I hope that we can see the good in people and see that most people around the world just want to live their lives and be happy, and don't want to deal with all of this stuff that's happening right now. So, anyways, guys, enjoy the episode. There's a lot of fun in this episode, so hope you get a lot out of it. All right, welcome everyone. This is our travel experiences. I'm Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have a good friend of mine, Larayna, with me. Larayna, how's it going?
Going good. So far, so good. Just starting the
Yeah,
day.
yeah. I know we had lots of technical issues here this morning, but hopefully we're good now. But I'm excited to have you here and talk about your travel experiences. I know in the past, as we've known each other over the years, we've talked a lot about traveling the world. You've traveled a lot, had some unique experiences, so excited to talk about it with you today.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I have traveled a decent amount, not quite as much as you or some of my other friends, but I feel like, over my travels, I've come, I've had some experiences for sure. So I am excited to be able to share those with you today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, excited to hear about it. So, as we were hopping on here, you mentioned to me that you had some funny experiences when traveling. So, tell me about those.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have a couple, but so I'll start with this one because I think it's the funniest and just craziest experience. My mom, when I told her this story, like it took me years to tell her this because she would have had a heart attack. Um,
Those are
it's just
usually
like,
the best ones.
well, yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like your mom like specifically tells you not to do these type of things, but I did it anyway, and here I
Hmm.
am to tell the story. So, anyways, so my husband's from Ukraine originally, so we went over. Gosh, this was probably like, I don't know, 2015 or something. And we were in Kiev. That's the opposite side of Ukraine that he's from. So he's unfamiliar with the city. Have you heard of couch surfing? Are you familiar with couch surfing?
Yeah, definitely.
So we did a lot of couch surfing as we were younger. So, anyways, there's this guy that lives in Kiev who works for the US Embassy um, that we're supposed to go stay with. But this is our very first couch surfing experience ever. And he's like, hey, meet me in the metro when you get here. Well, I'm from California. We don't really have those. So, like, I walk
What's a
in and
metro?
it's like, holy moly, where is this guy? I don't know what he really looks like. Like, I'm freaking out because I'm like, well, we're technically staying with a stranger right now. And so, just all the things. Like, I'm in a country, I don't understand anything. My husband's unfamiliar with the territory. So, anyways, we're like, okay, let's just go to McDonald's. Good old McDonald's. You can always rely on them to be warm and have Wi-Fi. By the way, this is the dead of winter, so we're in Ukraine, dead of winter. We get to McDonald's. Well, my phone's dying, and we don't have one of those converters for the outlet.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sitting next to this guy, and I'm like, hey, Andre, ask this guy if I can plug into his MacBook with my USB cord. And so the guy actually hears me ask my husband. Turns out this guy's name is also Andre. He speaks English because he lives in Atlanta, Georgia, but he was back in Kiev visiting his friends and stuff for the holidays. And so he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, go ahead, plug in or whatever. And then he's like, will you watch my stuff? And so we're like, and Andre's like, that's weird because usually people in Ukraine are not that trusting to like leave their expensive stuff with strangers. So this guy goes and does his thing, comes back, and then we start chatting. And we tell him the story of, we were couch surfing and we were meeting this guy and we couldn't find him and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, so you don't have a place to stay tonight? And we're like, no, we're like going to book a hotel. No big deal. And the guy's like, no, 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 no. You can't book a hotel. Hold on. Let me call my friends. And we're like, okay. So then he walks around McDonald's, asks a bunch of people to borrow their cell phone to make the call, finds a cell phone to borrow because it was, they have those like minute plans. Remember when we used to like have those, if you run out of minutes, you have to go buy more and it's like a whole deal. I kind of forgot how that lifestyle is, but
yeah, that was rough.
Anyway, so he finds a phone, calls some friends, and then goes, okay, follow me. And then I'm just like, okay, now we're following a stranger that we met in McDonald's. And this is like, it's different when you're on couch surfing. Usually people have like hundreds of reviews and you can like read them and all that jazz. And then like some people are like background verified stuff. And I'm just like, all right, okay, here we go. So we follow the stranger that we met at McDonald's. We go through all these subway tunnels. Like he stops at one point and we're like, wait, where did he go? Because he had stopped with like the street artists, like the guys singing and stuff, and like takes his guitar and starts singing and like people are giving him money. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. How is this happening right now? Is this real life? So anyways, we finally get to the destination and like we go down these back alleyways. Like, Europe's weird. Like you go down an alleyway and then you're like in a new like courtyard and there's like new buildings. It's bizarre. So we get there and before he opens the door, he turns around and looks us dead in the eye and goes, this is where the revolution begins. What? And I was like, holy crap, this is how I die. At this point, I'm like, well, I'm freaked out and I can't turn around and leave now because that's awkward, Yeah. But I'm pretty sure he might kill us right now. I don't know. Anyways, we go in and there are just a bunch of Ukrainian people with like all these civil activist posters like on the wall. And they were actually one of the groups responsible for not this last one in Kiev, but like the big revolution before the last one that was like 4 or 5 years ago. So they were responsible for that. And they were having a Christmas party or a New Year's party or something. And we like sat down and hung out and drank with them and ate with them. And this guy, he takes us to his house and was like, oh, so how long have you been friends with Andre? And we're like, we just met him an hour ago at McDonald's. And he's like, what? He told me that his good friends were stranded and needed a place to stay. And I'm like, well, technically we're friends now. But so that guy was like totally thrown off just as much as we were. But it was hilarious. And then I thought, like, well, this guy that just drug us around the city is going to come hang out with us. The guy's like, okay, no, I've got to leave now. And I'm like, where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going to Moscow because I have to catch a flight back to Atlanta. And I'm like, okay, so you're not even staying in this. You just dropped us off here. And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys got where you needed to go. And I'm like, okay. But
Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
that guy that we ended up staying with, totally thrown off as well. But he took the next day off of work to like tour us around Kiev and like showed us all the cathedrals and all the cool spots. And it ended up being a really, really incredible experience. And I'm very thankful for both of them. Um, but yeah, it was a little crazy because I'm like, that could have gone totally different.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My heart would be pounding.
Oh, it was very, there was a serious adrenaline rush because I'm just like, looking at Andre, like my Andre, going, do we do this? Like, what should we do right now? And he's like, I don't know. But the next day, so I ended up messaging the guy that we were supposed to stay with, and saying, hey, like, we couldn't find you. And, like, can we just meet up tomorrow? Because we felt bad for like ditching him last minute. We're like, no,
Mhm.
like we weren't trying to ditch you. We couldn't find you. It was cold. Like we just wanted to get somewhere. And he's like, okay, sure. And so we ended up meeting with him and like kind of hanging out and having lunch and doing the things. And then we went to go get on our train ride from Kiev to Lviv, which is where my husband's actually from. So we go to get on the train, and the girl won't let us on the train because Genius forgot about the time change. So when he booked the tickets, he actually booked them for the next day because he didn't account for the time change. So it would have been
Oh.
like, yeah, you know what I mean? So she's
Mhm.
like, are these train tickets leave for tomorrow? And he's like, well, is the train full? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, then why can't we just go? And she's like, no, that's against the rules. And I'm like, stupid. So we ended up going back to that other couch surfer's house and being like, hey, so funny story, we're stuck here. And he's like, yeah, you can stay. So we ended up staying with the original guy that we were looking for also. So
That's so crazy. I
yeah,
mean, that's one of the things that I love about traveling is, sometimes you get lost and you end up having a better experience than you plan for.
yeah.
But that one seems super sketchy.
Totally sketchy. Like, I'm very lucky that these guys were all like legit, just super like in my experience, the travelers that I've come across are just they're always willing to help.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
the people who are really traveling for the experience of like culture and meeting friends because I feel like when people are like, "Oh yeah, I travel," but then they just like book a hotel at the Hilton and like never leave the resort, like
Yeah,
technically you traveled to a new destination, but that's not what my travel looks like. So,
yeah, definitely. That's what I call a vacation.
right.
It's totally different from travel. Travel's like you're getting immersed in the culture. Um, so, gosh, that's a crazy experience. I don't know if I would have been okay with that if it was me. Um, did
My mother
they?
was not okay with it.
Yeah, that's something that you tell her after the fact, right?
Yeah, it took me a couple of years.
Yeah, I know. I did that with my parents when I went to New Zealand. I bungee jumped. I was supposed to go skydiving, but it got canceled last minute. But I didn't tell my parents about either one until I got back from New Zealand, and they were upset.
You're like, but
But
did I
it all
die?
worked out. Yeah, right. I thought, they're gonna worry more if I tell them beforehand
Oh, for sure.
than afterwards. So, so have you been to Ukraine multiple times?
I have. I've actually been 3 times.
Three times.
We
Okay.
basically went every other year up until when we had kids. So,
Yeah. So what's Ukraine like? I mean, that's a destination that I don't think a lot of at least Americans get to. Just kind of share a little bit about that.
sure. Well, I'm very fortunate to have somebody who is from there and who speaks the language because Ukrainian and Russian are different. Now, most of the Ukrainians will speak Russian. Like it,
Hmm.
it doesn't go the other way around. Like if you show up to Russia speaking Ukrainian, they won't know what you're saying. So I was very lucky to be able to do that because one of the things that I experienced was their English is not very strong, which I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be. It's a it's not an English speaking country. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it makes it really difficult for people who are English speakers who want to travel there. So it's beautiful. I mean, Kiev and Lviv are very different. Those are the only two major cities that I've been to. Like I've been to some of the outer lying like areas, but the two major cities that I've been to are Kiev and Lviv. And Lviv is on, the western side. They have a lot of like Austro-Hungarian influence. So all of that architecture is just really old and just
Hmm.
beautiful. So there's a lot of Polish influence. Um, it really reminds me of Poland, but um, I'm trying to think of what else like in
What?
particular.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there's been a few revolutions recently. Was the one that you were talking about, was that like during the whole Crimea thing?
So we were actually there right as that was starting to pick up. So we couldn't actually go over there. So we've always wanted to go and we were not able to because of that. The one that I was actually referencing was a few years prior to that in Kiev.
Okay. What were they? Was it just like a revolution against kind of like the Russians or the Ukrainian government?
It was the Ukrainian government because if you remember when that whole thing happened a few years ago, they overthrew the Ukrainian president. He basically
Yeah,
fled to
that's right.
Russia, from my
That's right.
understanding. Um, so they were trying to overthrow that current administration.
Yeah.
So,
It seemed
and
it
I'll
seems
be
like
honest, like my understanding of like their political stuff is really fuzzy. So I just catch bits and pieces of when
mhm.
people are talking to Andre about it. So I'm just like, I think I kind of understand, but I'm not really sure. That particular group of people that I was with, they were already um, they were enjoying their libations. We'll just say that. So we kind of walked in right at the heat of like their party there. So
Yeah. So I guess I don't know. This stuff kind of fascinates me with kind of the world, politics and everything. So, what exactly were they fighting for? Was it just more kind of Western type ideals, or what was that?
honestly, I wish I could fill you in on more.
You're probably worried about, am I gonna die or not, rather
Yeah.
than what they're fighting for.
Well, at that point in time, like because everybody, like there were just a couple of people there that spoke English, like so I didn't really understand fully what was going on, and yeah, my adrenaline was like coursing pretty hard, so I was like, I am just so confused. But so Ukraine is really divided. Like part of the country likes the idea of being involved with Russia, and the other part of the country where my husband is from does not. They want to be their
Hmm.
own independent country, which they technically are right now. Which there's some scary stuff happening right now as we speak. The last update I got, there was like 300,000 Russian troops moving towards the Ukrainian border.
Yeah,
So
that's right. That's right.
it is really, really scary. And I'm really concerned for the people who live there. I don't have a full understanding of what's going on. To me, it all comes down to money
Hmm.
and power. So
Yeah.
whatever side is fighting for what, like the people just want what's best for the people who live there and to live their lives. And unfortunately, that's not, politicians don't care about that. We can pretend like they
Hmm.
do all day, but they don't. And like we're going to open Pandora's box. You know that I'll go down the political rabbit hole. Um,
This
but
isn't a
it doesn't
political
matter what country
podcast.
it is. But I think from my understanding, they were fighting to be more detached from Russia and to have like a government that really did care about the people and try to take care of the people, rather than being in Russia's pocket and, you know, um,
Hmm.
basically the people get nothing. So that's
Yeah,
my general overview of what I actually understand happening.
that's kind of, from the little that I know about it. It seems like when the last, I guess, president was overthrown, it was because he was basically a
Embezzling
Russian
money.
agent.
Yeah.
He was just doing kind of whatever Russia told him to do. But but as you know, Ukraine to me always has fascinated me because it's one of those countries that has been caught in the middle
Hmm.
of this kind of West and East fight, and obviously they were under the Soviet Union for a long time, and then have now had freedom essentially for the last 20, 30 years. But it's still a very tense situation. And obviously, you said, Russia is kind of ramping up the aggression there right now. So, yeah, it's sad to see that, the governments are, playing with our lives essentially for their own power and gain. So it sucks to see what might happen there. But hopefully everything works out all right, and we can travel there safely in the future as well.
Right. Well, right now travel is kind of weird anyway when it comes to
Yeah.
international. But it's like the people who live there too. Like a lot of them, I've known quite a few people who have tried to get, um, like refugee status, and they can't leave. Like they aren't getting approved to leave, and
Mhm.
it kind of comes back to like the issues within our own border of, these people are spending all of their life savings to try to come here, and they're going through the procedure the way they're supposed to, and they're not allowed to come here. But on the other side, yeah. Anyways, I'm going to
Yeah,
avoid that topic. So uh,
it's such a messy issue.
that's the whole podcast. We're going to stick to travel. My heart breaks for the people of Ukraine. Um, they're generous. They're tough. Um, they're just an absolute like joy to be around when you're there, and
Mhm.
uh, good food, amazing food. So it's beautiful. The architecture is beautiful. As a one of my other experiences as a tourist that was really funny. All the Ukrainian girls are like tall, like way taller than me. Like I'm 5'4" barely, like when I'm stretching my back out. Um, and I have super dark hair. My skin is darker. Like I have that olive tone. I've got like brown eyes. These girls are like tall and skinny and have like brown hair and like, yeah, total opposite look. Well, there are a lot of Russian tourists in Ukraine. Um, but I got stopped numerous times. Like I'd be taking a picture with a statue or something, and people would be like, "Oh, can we take a picture with your girlfriend?" And my husband's like, "Fine, whatever." And I'm like, "Excuse me, why are you asking him? Like, you're not asking me." That's again the cultural thing, the difference there,
Mhm.
where they feel like they have to ask him, and I feel like they
Yeah.
should be asking me. So, anyways, I took pictures with so many strangers. I was like a celebrity over there, but um, the most notable one was there were two guys that had eagles. They had these like brown eagles, and I'm at this point I'm terrified of birds. Like I'm not so much anymore, but they're like, "Hey, like," and wanted to stop and talk to me because they could tell I wasn't from there. And they're like, "Here, hold
Mhm.
our eagles." And then Andre's like, "Don't touch the eagle. They're going to charge you for that eagle." And it's like, no, they want to be friends. They definitely charged us for the eagles. Just skip to that part. But I have a picture where like this eagle is like flapping its wings and like beating me in the head. And I'm like, my face is just like a look of like terror because I thought that this eagle was going to rip my arm off. Um, they're like, "Oh, you Americans, you have these really special eagles. You have bald eagles." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's true, actually, America." So
Yeah.
they wanted to talk about our bald eagles, and then they charged me for it. So that was kind of funny.
Oh gosh. Yeah, there's I feel like in so many places around the world there's people doing those sorts of scams.
Uh
I
huh.
know
I
in
thought eagles.
yeah, I know when I was in Italy they had in Milan they had the guys out in the square that were feeding the pigeons, and they'd like come up and hand you feed and uh to throw to the pigeons, and as soon as you did they charged you for it.
Yeah,
Um
and you're like, oh. When I was in
yeah.
Italy, selfie sticks were all the rage. So
Oh yeah.
of people trying to sell you selfie sticks. And I was really pregnant and really grumpy. And I was like, if you ask me about that selfie stick one more time, I'm going to beat you with your own selfie stick. Like, seriously, like one guy jumped in the middle of the picture that we were taking in front of a fountain and was like, selfie stick. And I'm like, dude, you literally see us taking a picture right now. Like, there's another like couple taking the picture for us. Why? Why would we want a selfie stick if somebody else can just take the picture? So I feel bad because again, they're just trying to make money, but it's like
Mhm.
it's overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's sad that that is the way it is, but
Mhm.
um,
Oh, I just thought of something cool about Lviv specifically that would be fun for people to know.
well, yeah, share it.
So they have themed restaurants.
Like
Um,
themed in what way?
so I have two in particular that I want to tell you about. So
Yeah.
one of them, you go through like a little alleyway, you go up to the door, and it's like a bunker, and you knock on the door, and so essentially like a speakeasy, and you have to
Hmm.
give the guy the password, but they're all in like old Ukrainian military style like gear. So like think like World War II style like
Okay.
army gear.
Yeah.
But you have to know the password, and the password is like "Glory to Ukraine." And if you speak in Russian, they won't let you in. So um, he opens the door, and like the whole time, my friends are like, "This is what you say. This is what you say." And then he opens the door, and I'm just like paralyzed. I'm like, and he's like, where are you from? And I was like, California. And he's like, okay, you can come in, but first. And then he like pours me a shot of vodka and makes me take a shot of vodka with him at the front
Oh
door.
gosh.
This was the not pregnant visit, by the way. Um, but anyways, yeah, he like just pours me a fast shot of vodka and I have to take a shot with him before I'm able to walk in. But it's
Oh
funny because
God.
he's like looking at me and I'm just like staring up at this guy and he's like, where are you from? And I'm like, California. And he's like, okay, come in. It was like, so there's that one. So it was like the whole thing was like army themed. It was really cool.
Huh.
The food is incredible. That's always my favorite place to go when we go back. And then they had another one that you walk in and it's crazy because you're like, I think I just walked into somebody's flat on accident. It's like kind of weird and dark and dingy and like you think that you're in like a person's apartment essentially. And then you
Hmm.
walk through and it's this like fine dining restaurant. So it's made
Oh,
to like
weird.
throw people off. So again, you have to kind of know how to go through it.
Hmm.
Um, and then when you go in, basically if you're like a member of their club, like the price is like half of whatever it is on the menu. And if you're not and you don't tell them, you end up paying these insane prices. Um,
Gosh.
yeah, but it's
Like,
super fun and it's a
what
good
would one
time.
of the meals cost?
I actually don't remember. Um, for us, like, because the exchange rate was actually really like good for us, but not good for them. Um,
Hmm.
I would say that in that particular restaurant is probably like $20 a plate or something. So it's
Okay.
not it's not insane for us, but
Yeah.
um, for
By
them
maybe
that's
by their standards, yeah, it would be.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned multiple times that the food is really good in Ukraine. What are some of your favorite dishes there?
Oh gosh, so many things. I'm gonna have to say pilmeni is my favorite one, and they're essentially like they're dumplings. You stuff them with meat, and so my favorite ones are
Ooh.
typically the ones made out of lamb, ground lamb, and pork. But you can do like pork and beef. When I make them at home, I do pork and beef. Um, but yeah, they're just think of like raviolis, but just meat inside of them.
That
So
sounds
that's
really
probably
good.
my favorite. In the morning for breakfast, they usually like have sliced cheese and bread and like smoked meats, so like kielbasa and stuff, which
Hmm.
is common through most of Central and Eastern Europe. So in Poland, it was the same way. Poland is actually another really incredible country. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. They have so many good soups. I feel like everybody knows what borscht is, the Russian
Oh
beef.
yeah.
Yeah, that's some good stuff.
Yeah, I had that in St. Petersburg. It's really good in the middle of winter too, so that makes
Mhm.
it even better.
Yeah, it's so good. Actually, that sounds really good right now. I might have to go to
Yeah,
the Russian market. There's a
I
couple of
know.
Russian markets here in Spokane.
Okay. Yeah, there's a pretty big Russian population, right?
Fairly, yeah. Um, so I'm trying to think of what else I had that I just can't live without. Um, their candy is actually really good too, like their chocolate. They have good chocolatiers out there. Um, which is surprising because usually you think of countries like France and Belgium and Germany, which
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, have incredible chocolate, but Ukraine has its own um, like chocolatier that's really well known and it's really good.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I never even heard about Ukrainian chocolate.
I know nobody has. There are not a lot of Ukrainian things you've really heard about.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. Like they're, um, I don't know. It's interesting for sure. So I don't know. I can't think of any other, of course, because when you're on the spot, it's hard to think of
Yeah.
food, you know. But yeah, definitely borscht, pilmeni, and
How do you spell that?
P in English should just be P-E-L pilmeni Meni.
Okay. Interesting. I'll have to check that
Yeah. So
out.
fun fact, I alphabet, but I don't know what any of the words mean, so it's not really helpful, but like I know the alphabet. So it's
That's
helpful for
pretty
like
good. That's a hard alphabet to learn.
it is. It's confusing because a lot of the things that we look at, so like when you look at the letter H in their alphabet, it's actually the letter N. Like the capital H is the letter N.
Oh yeah.
And like the letter B for us is the letter V. It's V for them. So
Mhm.
just like little things like that. And then D is that one with the weird legs on it. I call it the virus because, like, in biology, when we would draw viruses, that's what they'd look like. So I
Yeah.
don't know. That's how my brain remembers it. I'm like, I remember this from class. Like, not the
Reminds me of
same
like
thing.
the little like the Space Invader Atari
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah. So
That's
that's D. It's D. So
yeah. Don't they have like the
confusing.
number three, but that's a letter as well.
Oh yeah, I think the number three is the Z. I think it's Z. What's
Huh.
confusing is they have like double sounds. So like there's a like a TS sound in their alphabet. So and it's a really hard one to pronounce. And then they have like j and yeah and yo. And I'm like, that how what that's two letters.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. That's cheating. So
Yeah. That's a tough language. I think especially for Americans who that it's a totally different kind of background to that alphabet. It's not based on the same
right.
languages at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely funny to learn because I was like, this is so confusing, but after enough exposure, it's helpful. At one point in time, I was really committed to learning. My husband is an awful teacher, awful. Um, like 0 out of 5 stars for sure. Um, so when I was in California and I had quite a few Russian friends, like they would help me. But I took like painter's tape and wrote the words in the Russian alphabet in painter's tape and put them on everything in the house.
That's smart.
So yeah. And I actually highly recommend that if you're trying to learn a language to like literally label all of the things in your house that you come in contact with frequently, like your phone and the door and just things that you would ask people about or ask people
Mhm.
for, like water, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I feel
yeah.
like that you'd be able to visualize it as well
Uh-huh.
as say it and all that.
Yeah. And then there's like another thing that I learned where it's like every time you touch that object, you should say that word out loud 3 times. Um, so, whenever you start learning something, you're always like all gung ho and like committed to it. But I'm just like, yeah. I mean, I've been with him since 2008 and I am not I don't know very much Russian. Or what's hard is he speaks both. He speaks Ukrainian and Russian. So sometimes he like mixes it, which is really confusing for somebody who's learning, you know?
Yeah. Are they? I'm guessing they're pretty similar.
They're similar, and that's why I'm saying like a lot of like Ukrainians, a lot of them speak Russian also, but they can understand Russian, but like it doesn't go the other way around. Like Russians can kind of understand like the base of the language, to my understanding. Again,
Hmm.
I this is my experience with talking with friends who are like Russian and Ukrainian. Um,
Yeah.
it's the Ukrainians interesting because like or the Ukraine is interesting because at one point they had to speak Russian. Um, and now they're making a big push to not teach Russian in their schools. They only teach Ukrainian and English.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's interesting. I know when I was in Estonia, it was kind of similar. Um,
they
Obviously,
did not want anything to do with Russian.
yeah, they're very pro America, very pro Western society. They almost were kind of oh gosh, I can't think of the word now. I guess like racist in a way to Russians. They really looked down upon them and tried to not speak any Russian at all.
Well, if you look at the history of them being forced to like crush their own culture down to promote a
Yeah.
different culture that wasn't theirs, like to adopt that culture. Um, I mean, and we have some of that here in the US, right? Like if you talk to some Native Americans, like they feel the
Hmm.
same way. Um, it's the same concept. It's not necessarily
Yeah.
that they don't like the everyday Russian people. It's that they don't feel like they should have to speak that because they were forced to do so for so long. And I can
Hmm.
totally understand why they would feel that way. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
interesting. It is
Definitely.
a beautiful country overall. I really enjoyed it. I wish I could have explored more of it. Um, but it was a really interesting time frame that I went. I also always go every time I've been to Ukraine has been in the winter. So that's been fun. The one thing I wish I would have done that I didn't get to go do, I didn't realize the Carpathian Mountains ran through Ukraine.
The
And
Carpathian Mountains.
uh-huh, they're like a really famous mountain range. And
Uh, how big are they? Is it just in Ukraine or is it through other countries?
no, I don't know how far it stretches. I'd have to like look it up, but it's a pretty large mountain range. Um, so I've in school I learned about like the Carpathians and stuff, and I
Hmm.
don't remember. I just remember the name of them, but I remember we went out the night before to a club, and the clubs don't close at 2 like they do in the United States. They close at like 7 or 8 a.m.
Yeah, they like started too.
It is so ridiculous. That was my first interaction with absinthe.
Oh God.
Everything the next day. I will tell you that. I was like, I don't know how. Like, Ukrainian women wear heels everywhere all the time. Like, if they're taking out the trash,
Hmm.
heels. Picking up the mail, heels. So I went out and bought a pair of heels specifically designed to wear in the snow. Like, they have like traction at the bottom. Um,
So weird.
yeah, I actually have them. I'll totally send you a picture of them later. They're like knee-high boots, so like and they're furry inside, so they keep your legs warm, but they're like leather. Yeah, I paid a fortune for these things. Anyways, I wore these things. They're like 5-inch heels all night in the snow
Oh God.
because we walk home, obviously, because why wouldn't you in Europe? Um, yeah, and I just remember like kind of like waking up and like snapping out of it and being like, oh my gosh, it's 6 a.m. What are we still doing here? Why are we still awake? We were supposed to go skiing the next day. And I was like, yeah, that's not happening. I ended up getting up at like 1.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, I don't know why they like. I remember in Estonia too. They liked absinthe there for some reason.
I
It
like it.
seems
I
a
think
much
it's
bigger
good.
deal over there. But that is a
Why it's
brutal.
not a big deal here?
Yeah, probably because
So
we like want to be functional the next day.
I don't know. Like if you just take like one or two shots of absinthe, it's perfect. Like it's
Yeah,
so I think it tastes good. Like I like it. So
yeah. I don't know if I can say the same. I'll stick to my whiskey, but
bourbon
I don't
too.
know. Maybe
It's good to
maybe I'm sure like in the wintertime, uh, I'm sure it really warms you up though to have something like
a little bit.
that. What are the winters like? Is it similar to like the Russian type of winter we think about?
No, that's going to be all your like northern Russian winters. Those are like Siberia and stuff. But
Mhm.
really, I would compare Ukraine's winter to just like an inland Northwest, like North Idaho winter, like Spokane. So it
Okay.
snows and then it kind of stops. And then, yeah, I was colder when I lived in Montana than it
Mhm.
was in Lviv anyway. And that's the western side of Ukraine.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it does snow and it gets pretty cold, but it's not unbearable.
Well, have you ever been to like Poland in the winter?
No, but I was in St. Petersburg in the middle of winter. Actually, that was almost 4 or 5 years ago to the day that we're recording this. Um, yeah, one day I think it was -27 with the wind chill. It was it was so cold. Um,
Yeah, that sounds like Montana. Like the coldest I've ever been in Montana on like a day to day was like -30.
uh,
So
it's just
Ukraine is
brutal. You
not
can't get
his side of Ukraine is not that cold.
okay.
But
So better
you
winters there.
better winters there. I would say like if you were going to put anything on your travel bucket list, you have to go to, I mean, any of these countries really, but like Poland, Austria, Germany, their Christmas markets
Oh
are
yes,
unbelievable.
yes.
Um, so my favorite one was actually in Vienna.
Okay.
So Prague has a cool one too, but I think Prague was cool. I was just expecting a lot more because it's such a highly traveled to place.
Mhm.
Um, so I was expecting like this crazy hype and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I enjoyed this. I would come back, but I've been to way cooler cities, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Um, what'd you like about the Christmas?
I don't know. It's just magical. Like it's
Yeah.
cold outside, it's snowing, there are all these twinkling Christmas lights. And we don't really have anything like this here in in the States. Like everything's just like normal retail stores. And like sure they do like a couple like vendor events and stuff where it's like some crafts at the market or whatever, but like maybe it's special to me because it's foreign. Um, but they also in Vienna, they also had like a mulled rum or whiskey or something. It's
Ooh,
eh, I don't know what. It's called like glue wine or something.
blue wine.
It's well, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of that. It's some German name. Um, but it is phenomenal. It is so good. And it will knock you on your tail. So one day you're at a Christmas market, the next you don't know where you're at. But so be careful. Be very careful. Actually, another funny story that he's going to be mad that I shared, but I'm sharing it anyway. Um, we're in Vienna at the Christmas market. We're with this Austrian guy, and he was like, "Oh, you have to try this. It's really good, but be careful because it's really strong." And it's one of those things that like it tastes so good, it doesn't feel like it's very strong.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
Uh huh. Yep. And it's warm and it's cold outside, so you're just like drinking it because it's amazing. Um, and next thing we know, Andre's a couple of glasses in, and he's like yelling at this guy because he wants a burrito, but we're in Austria, and he's like, "How do you say burrito in German?" Like, so he's just like yelling at this guy about like trying to get a burrito, but also like how to say burrito in German, like because he wanted like a Mexican burrito.
Hmm.
And I'm like, we're a little far from Mexico, buddy. We're not in California anymore. You can't just walk into a market here and get a burrito. So it was actually really funny because he was like getting like upset about the fact that he couldn't find a burrito. And like everybody else was just really confused. So I like, and they were laughing and he didn't understand why they were laughing. And I was just like, oh, why do I know you?
You probably don't even
But it's probably like a tortilla, like it's more like a wrap, I'd assume,
yeah.
but not as delicious.
No, that's
Um,
So I wanted to go back to your time in Poland and all the places you mentioned. What were some of the highlights that someone traveling over there would have to see when they're there?
oh gosh. That's one of the issues is I don't remember any of the names of any of those places. But what I could do is pull them up online for you and you can include them like in the title of the podcast or something,
yeah, yeah,
like
definitely.
in the description.
Yeah, I can share in
Yeah,
the link or whatever.
perfect. Yeah, because they're all like Ukrainian names and stuff,
Yeah.
and I don't remember any of the names. It's been a really long time since I've been there. There was actually another place that I think is worth mentioning. It was outside of Lviv. They have all these crazy, like old, like Viking churches and stuff. So they were all the old wooden churches from Ukraine, and they like basically moved them all to one property. But we're talking like from like the age of like the Vikings and stuff. No, I mean I know the
Wow.
Vikings in Ukraine, but like that same time
Yeah.
period. So um I'm
You know,
not
I
educated enough to know what time frame that was.
yeah, I think thinking about the Christmas market, that was the coolest part to me was you're in the middle of the square and you're surrounded by these buildings that are like 500 years old.
Uh-huh.
And it just feels like you're back in this.
Yep, you're in like it's almost like a storybook. It's crazy, like the
Yeah,
cobblestone streets.
yeah.
Um, there was a Christmas market in Ukraine that was right in front of the Opera House, which is like hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I actually went to see um, the Black Swan, the ballet. And
Oh
I'm not a
yeah,
ballet person, but we sat up in like the balcony seats where like the royalty used to sit.
yeah.
So it was really fun to experience that. But like you could go ice skating. You could get in Ukraine and in Poland, they have medovuha. It's a honey vodka. It's essentially honey vodka. And again, you can drink it warm or cold, and it is so good when it's not cold outside. It's so warming. So
Mm.
you only need like a little bit. They just pour these tiny like glasses for you. But it keeps you nice and warm while you're walking around. So yeah, it that was definitely something interesting about the Christmas markets. And if you find the good ones, I think the reason the one in Vienna was so special was because the guy took us. He goes, "Oh, have you been to the Christmas markets?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course. Like, there's a million of them." And he's like, "Yeah, but like you've gone to all the tourist Christmas markets that are in the main part of the city." He's like, "I'm going to take you to an actual like local like Austrian Christmas market." And we're like, "Oh, that's really cool. Like totally different." So I think if you kind of venture off the beaten path, you find the better ones because the ones in the heart of the city typically tend to be for tourists.
Yeah, I think that's good advice in general for travelers is get off the beaten path. That's where you're going to find the real history and the real culture and the real food and get a much more immersive experience.
Right. Well, and you have to be careful in some areas. Like I know in Paris, there were certain places where people were like, do not go here. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so probably not following random strangers that you meet at McDonald's.
Oh, whatever. That was like one of the coolest experiences of my
yeah.
life. And I think those guys are still friends with me on Facebook. So every now and then, like I chat with them. But um, Yeah, I talked to the one that we actually stayed with not long ago, and then the guy that worked for the embassy, I think, is back in the States now. But I kind of talk to all those people still every now and then.
That's so cool that you can make lifelong friends.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I will never forget that experience for sure.
One last thing on your trips, what general advice do you have for travelers who are traveling over to Ukraine, Poland, those Eastern European countries, and just kind of explain what the infrastructure is like there?
Sure. Vienna, easy, super easy. Um, Vienna, like they're probably one of the cleanest cities that I've ever been to. Um, I mean, they have like the metro, all the trains, like very easy to navigate. Ukraine is a little bit more complicated. Poland was pretty easy. Um, and again, like they have like the light rails and they have taxis. Like it's really easy to get around. Ukraine, we mostly used the bus systems, which kind of crazy to be honest, like because they pack those things way more full than is actually safe, and I am a little claustrophobic. um so that was a little bit of a problem for me, but I made it work. So because like people will just like shove you, and like yeah, it's a little overwhelming. I would compare it really to being like if you've ever rode like the bus system in like Mexico, it's kind of similar.
Okay, so they just kind of pack you in there like sardines.
Yeah, yep. But in the winter, everybody's wearing like fur coats and stuff, so you're like suffocating under everybody else's coat. So,
Well, at least you get to stay warm.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's nice and toasty on there. Like that's the problem is they run the heater and then you have all these bodies on there and you're just like, okay, now it's like 150 degrees in this thing.
Oh, that's funny. Any other kind of general advice for people traveling over there?
I would say definitely have um one, don't forget your plug-in because they have a different outlet system. Tip number
Mhm.
one. Tip number two, uh, I would say like having like somehow getting like the layout of like the bus stops, like a map basically of the city, and knowing where you want to go is really helpful because there are so many buses and stuff that run through there. It can be a little overwhelming, and you'll just end up paying a taxi and they will take advantage of you for sure on that. Uh,
Yeah,
but
I'm
yeah,
sure.
and then just kind of know what you're looking for. Like if you want to like see the architecture, like where in the city is the best spot for that, and like kind of doing that research ahead of time of the things that are really important to you to see. And then I would say set aside time to kind of just wander around, like maybe go to the center of the city and then just kind of go out from there because there's so many really cool places.
Hmm. Do you think someone who just knows English would be fine to go over there without any sort of tour guide?
Um, it would be a little rough. I would say learn your basics. Just,
Yeah.
hello, goodbye, thank you, please. Like, where can you find this? Because, like, body
Hmm.
language goes a long way, but just being able to say some of that would be helpful. But Kiev, I would say you're good in Kiev. In Poland, golden. Like, if you're wanting to get a similar experience to Ukraine, and you're worried about the language barrier, I would say go to like Krakow.
Okay.
Uh, that had like the architecture is like almost the same, really.
Yeah.
But
Um,
the
yeah.
Polish, their English is really good. Actually, there was another city in Poland that I went to. It was kind of like a random, kind of a pit stop, but I'll have to get the name of it for you. And I had a great time in that little city. It was really fun. So I would say that that's probably your best bet if you are really concerned. Like if that is a genuine concern and you're not comfortable going to Ukraine with that language barrier, um, go to Poland instead. You'll get a
Okay.
very similar experience, but their English is really phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Poland is part of the EU, I'm pretty sure,
Yep.
versus Ukraine is not.
Well, that's
And
what
so I
they've been
think,
looking for.
yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. There's much more of a Western influence in Poland than in Ukraine, I feel like.
Hmm. I would agree. Well, it's interesting not to extend our conversation too much longer, but like Hungary is in the EU now, and it still has that very there's like like an oppression that lays in the air. You can feel it,
Hmm.
and it's weird. It's like it's just kind of depressing. So when I went to Budapest, again, I was expecting because everybody like raves about going to Budapest, and it was beautiful. Like the city itself was beautiful, but there's a certain like feeling in the air that just lingers there. Um,
Yeah. I know
and
what you're saying.
yeah, I'm having a hard time explaining it with words, but like you can feel it, and it's weird. And I'm like not one of those energy sensitive people to where I'm just like, oh, I feel this energy. Like I'm not one of those people. But like when you go, like you can tell by like the demeanor of people and just like the environment. It also probably didn't help that it was winter, so everything was depressing
Yeah.
anyway. But again, like it's really bizarre because you go to Poland and it's the EU is treating them very well, and then you go to like Hungary and it's not. So you're just like, huh, what's the difference here? What's going on? And I guess that'd be kind of similar to our states, right? Like you have one state
Hmm.
that's thriving and another that's like struggling and everything. So again, the internal politics, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. That's back to the political discussion there.
Yep. Yep. Again, another podcast. Like this is not the one. So,
Yeah.
um, but anyways, Poland is really incredible. Ukraine is too, and I'm sure that somebody would be happy to be your tour guide and to show you around, and you would be able to support them, and their family. So, if you had to hire a tour guide, I don't feel like it would be the worst thing. Um, and just being able to support them would be really incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, Lorena, I know we're coming up on an hour here, just over an hour. Thanks for sharing a lot about Ukraine and your experiences. I learned a lot today, and I'm definitely excited to travel to Ukraine in the future. But we'll look forward to talking with you another time about some other travel experiences that you have in the U.S. and talking about traveling as a mom and that sort of thing. Obviously, there's a lot that we can talk about when it comes to travel. So, thanks again for taking the time today, and I look forward to talking with you again here soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you inviting me on today, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yeah, awesome. All right, bye everyone.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always listen to other episodes on Spotify or Anchor. The links are in the description below. If you want to see travel pictures from today's guest and other guests, as well as my own travel photos, you can see them on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. If you want to share your own travel pictures on the page and or share your travel experiences on the podcast, you can message me on that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to hear about your travel experiences and see all the beautiful pictures that you've taken. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I look forward to sharing the world with you again soon.